Let me. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Nelson Dutch Seda. How are you today, Nelson?
Fine, thank you. Yourself?
Thank you. Very well. Well, Nelson, first of all, tell us what kind of art you do, and are you a veteran?
Yes, I am a veteran, Third Infantry Division. Uh, I'm a former graffiti artist. For a while, I was involved. Before that, I used to be a dancer. I was also a rapper before I went to the military. But yes, I was definitely in the military, and I was part of the hip hop culture.
So, is how are there a lot of veterans in hip hop?
There's quite a few, but successful ones. You have Ice-T, you have MC Hammer, Shaggy. There was a few others, but their success really didn't take off. You had Cannabis, who maybe was out for a couple of years, but lost, fell off. Mystical had fell off as well. There's a couple of unknowns. I personally have a friend, Johnny Juice Rosado, who was with DJ for Public Enemy, who was in the Navy. He was just nominated to the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, and he's still very active in the hip hop community.
So, do veterans have any difficult pursuing their art in the hip hop community?
I think so, yes, because what happens is depending on how long you go away, sometimes you lose creativity. You know what I'm saying? Because you're used to doing something every day. Okay. But then once you go to the military, it's really a mindset. You're not dancing, you're not doing art, you're not rapping. So you lose touch with some of that. And what happens is, even though you're in the military, when you come back home, things aren't the same. A lot of stuff moves on, changes, and it's hard to try to adapt as it is coming home from the military, especially trying to reinvent yourself, in the industry itself. Music changes, art changes. So it's kind of hard, yes.
However, by the time you come back from the military, you have so much experience, so much different feelings that you could apply it to the art. So, do veterans, when they come back, try to incorporate their experiences in the service into their art?
I know now they have a bunch of different programs that where you could for PTSD, for example, where veterans come back and they could use it's like therapy through the fine arts. They do
Oh,
art projects and stuff like that. I forgot the exact name. I was reading on it a couple of days ago. Back in the day, though, when I was in the military, they didn't have none of that. You know what I'm saying? This is only stuff that's been happening recently. Uh, you also have to understand too, it depends on when people go to the military. When I came back from the military, there were no conflicts. So when I came home, it was like, okay, so you're in the military, it wasn't until after 9/11 where people started coming back home, and it's a totally different mindset. Like now, you come home from the military, hey, there's a lot of programs out there, there's things out there for you. Uh, Even for example, prior to when I went in the time during Vietnam, when veterans came home, they were hated and frowned upon. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of changes in that as well. You know what I'm saying? Now it's different because now you have all these programs. There's a lot of military artists who are not signed in the industry, but they're still very vocal and they still use music, they still use art as a release.
what about homeless veterans? Even though there are so many programs to help veterans, there are a lot of homeless veterans. Are there any
Yes.
homeless veterans that are still trying to apply their art?
I'm a social worker, so I deal with a lot of homeless veterans. I'll be honest with you, when they come home, art is the furthest thing from their mind. They have so many personal issues going on and so much stuff. They're trying to get a home. A lot of them are addicted to drugs. A lot of them have mental health issues. So art is like the furthest thing that they want to do because in a way it reminds them of what they used to have. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that no more. So they're kind of bitter, they're upset, and they don't want to, it's kind of hard.
Have you heard of any programs that try to uh, help veterans by applying them to art? Because I interviewed a young lady a couple of weeks ago, and she was trying to do that. So I know it's very hard, but maybe art could actually help these veterans recover.
I agree. But also too, like when for instance, I live in Indiana. In Indiana, to be honest, there is really no fine art, to that extent. There's no hip hop community. So as far as Indiana, it's kind of hard. You know what I'm saying? Cities like New York, Chicago, it's a lot different because you do have a ideology and a mind, a community that's geared for that type of stuff. So I think a lot of it depends where you're at because if you go to places like a veteran comes back to Montana, there's nothing in Montana that's geared, to the fine arts. Everything's about farming. Same thing in Indiana. It's all about farming, and there's no like fine art outlets per se. So I think that has a big factor, and a big part to do with it as well.
But you are based in Indiana, and you are still active in the community, in the arts community. So
Yeah.
how are you able to do that?
Well, a lot of it's because of my connections back home in New York. And because there's a community in Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit. So it's not so much like in Fort Wayne where I'm at, but I would have to go like 2 hours into Chicago, or I can go 2 hours into Detroit. That's the good thing about Fort Wayne is I'm in the middle of all these other places where you can still keep touch and still reach out to some of these people. Uh, there's a gentleman in Chicago that does a lot of poetry and spoken word. It's only through him recently that I've been able to connect with some here at Fort Wayne. But they don't have like the outlets for instance, if you go to New York, spoken word is everywhere. I mean, they have the poetry slam in Madison Square Garden. They don't have that here. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard. And a lot of it's just finding the connections in other cities, which can help connect and bring, resources here.
Is there a venue in Fort Wayne where maybe you could be the one that starts it?
Yeah, there's one here. There's actually a spoken word poetry here. The graffiti, a lot of it's not really here at all. It's just starting to pick up here. They do have two or three artists that are local. They do a lot of murals as fine arts. They do have an art museum down in Fort Wayne. Uh, they're just starting to do that now. We're starting to become a little bit more popular, and it's becoming a venue now. You have a lot more artists coming into Fort Wayne now because of the location, and because Fort Wayne also is there. It was just voted, I think, the second fastest growing city in the Midwest. So it's actually expanding, and a lot of the culture and the arts and the diversity is starting to move into Fort Wayne, where it's making it possible.
Tell us a little bit about your work as a graffiti artist.
I mean, I started drawing when I was a child at the age of 14. I actually taught myself how to draw. I worked with kids for many years. And what I told them is I used to go to the library. A lot of kids don't do that now because they just stay on their phones all the time. But I used to go back to the library and take out books like learn how to draw horses or learn how to draw boats. And I started doing that. I got lucky because I grew up in the South Bronx of the 70s, right when the graffiti was taking off, the hip hop culture was taking off. So I was exposed and around it daily from sixth grade on. So it was very easy to get into the art. I still have a graphic design business that I do. I'm a freelance graphic designer. Uh, I've done some work. I was recently working at a residential facility for youth where I was able to do some murals in the facility to bring some art to the campus. I still do some artwork here. I do canvas paintings every now and then. I still do like flyers, logos, but it's not as intense as it was when I lived in New York.
Flyers and logos, so you do it on the computer, like what program?
I use a lot of Photoshop, and I mainly use it because what I do is I like to draw everything by hand first before I put it in the computer. Then I might use some Illustrator, some Photoshop. Right now, there's an artist right now who's trying to want to ask me about doing a logo for him. I'm still waiting to hear back. A lot of it, like I do by hand. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, I don't really use a lot of that AI stuff because you lose. To me, it doesn't feel like it's part of you. For me, it has to be part of me. So I try not to use too much. I only use what I have to clean it up, to sharpen it up. But like there's some artists that are just AI, everything is done by computer. I try not to do that. I try to keep it as natural as possible. So I do a lot of like hand drawings and stuff like that, canvas paintings.
Nice. What about the AI? When you say to try to clean it up, do you use some AI programs to clean up? Is it faster to do the sharpening with the AI?
It helps. Yeah, it helps because you can actually get in a lot closer and you can actually clean up what they call by pixels. Then the little boxes, you're able to get a lot closer and it makes everything more detailed and much more crisp. Uh, a lot of times when you use pencil and pen, you might not notice it in the drawing, but when you go to put in the computer, it looks totally different because it gets that pixelated look to it. So it helps because it brings like, especially when I do logos, you want it to be very clear because when they go to use it and they're gonna, for t-shirts or whatever it is they're gonna use it for, the lines have to be very detailed. So yes, the computer programs really help as far as detailing and cleaning up the lines, making sure the background is all cleared. And a lot of times you can't see it because it might be something so small until you actually zoom in and you're like, oh, wow, wait a minute, I got to get that out of there. So, yes, they do help.
Does it take a lot of time to do all that, or with AI is
Uh,
faster?
it takes time because when you're zooming in, remember also, too, you're actually doing it very like you could take a letter in script that maybe is this an inch tall, but when you put it in the computer you're actually doing it by each pixel is a little box, so you're actually zooming it in like 300 times,
Oh,
so it takes a lot longer to do it, to clean it up, but the end result is always the best, but yes, you just have to be committed, to do that work.
you say that you try not to use AI because then it's not you. Right now,
Right.
when you see logos and when you see artwork, can you just by glancing at it tell whether it's AI drawn or people drawn?
Sometimes, yes, you can tell. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of it is beautiful. There is a lot of beautiful AI artwork out there. But for me as an artist, your artwork is an expression of you. You know what I'm saying? So if you're using AI, it's not you anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's you can't really say, "Oh, I did that." No, you might have done the basic part of it, but actually the computer did it. So for me, like personally, I wouldn't do it that way, but I have seen some that's beautiful. You see it on social media all the time. I mean, the colors are out, are very vivid. The lines, the details are beautiful. But I think as an artist, you want to try to keep it as natural as possible because it's an extension of yourself.
In other words, the struggle, the blood and the tears all matter, and that is evident in the result.
Yes. Yes, because your artwork is part of you. You know what I'm saying? So every piece of art, even if it's a little doodle on a piece of paper, my hand did that. You know what I'm saying? It was my hand, my eye coordination. I drew that. You know what I'm saying? So it's part of, this. I have drawings that I've done 15, 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because you become attached to all your artwork. It's not none any different than, let's say, than a carpenter, you know what I'm saying? Or a painter or shoemaker. Any that becomes part of you. It's part of your art, part of who you are.
Well, let's get back to your work with veterans. How do you
Yes.
help them? How
It could be with housing.
uh,
Sometimes they need help with housing. Sometimes they may need help with they might be ordered to do substance abuse classes. It could be getting up paperwork as far as like IDs, birth certificates, whatever they need. I try to help them get that. Sometimes some of the stuff is court mandated. Sometimes it isn't. It just depends on the client themselves. Sometimes it might just be all they need is an apartment. Okay. Sometimes they may have mental issues. They might not, they might be in denial and don't want to try to see no psychiatrist because a lot of people feel that that's a stigma they don't want put on them. You know what I'm saying? But as a social worker, I try to help them and convince them that, maybe it might, it's not so bad. And I always tell them that, and try to be with them, support them in any way I can, and as long as I can. It's just basically to try to help them get their life back.
uh, is there much of a difference between Latinos, between and blacks and whites in being a veteran and also being an artist in the hip hop community?
Uh, not in a way. There's a whole big debate right now. Uh, how they're talking about the Latino contribution to hip hop. There was a whole big discussion on social media where there was a lot of old school pioneers who do give credit to Latino artists in the birth of hip hop. There's others that say no, it was an all black thing. So it goes back and forth. Uh, but I was there. I'm telling on my age. I'm up there. So I was there in the 70s when they all started, when it came out. And I'm Puerto Rican. I was out there dancing. There's a lot of guys like there's the Rock Steady crew who are world renowned dance. They're all Spanish. There was a lot of rappers back in the day. A lot of people don't even know, like the Fat Boys. Prince Marky D is Puerto Rican. They had rappers, a Whipper Whip, who are legends. He was Puerto Rican. But you still have people that to this day will say, oh, no, it was an all black thing. And really, the white uh, came along with Eminem. Uh, before him, you have Vanilla Ice. A lot of people thought they didn't take Vanilla Ice serious. But then when Eminem came along, it kind of changed that. And they still have their struggles too, because it's still the thing where they'll be like, well, it's not a white thing, it's more of a black and Puerto Rican thing. But it's gotten to the point now where it's so diverse. Like you have the Asians now that are making a lot of noise with the hip hop community. I love to follow this group called XG. They're seven Asian girls and they consider them to be like the female Wu-Tang clan. You know what I'm saying? Uh, it's made a lot of strides. You know what I'm saying? So it's not even that. It just comes down to good music is good music. Period. It doesn't even matter anymore. Whereas back before it did, but now it's become a thing where hip hop is so diverse and it's on. I mean, practically on every continent, every household, doesn't matter what country. You can go to Belarus, you can go to Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, anywhere in Africa. There's people doing hip hop. I have a playlist with songs African from Ghana. I have songs from Russia, Poland. I mean, it's everywhere. Korea. You know what I'm saying? So it's become a thing where it's not even a color thing no more. It's hip hop has brought a whole different dynamic and a whole different diversity than where it first started.
What about the Hip Hop Hall of Fame and the hip hop community? Are they recognizing all these diverse talents?
Yes, they are. Uh, there's a lot of debates about that as well because a lot of young artists now don't really respect the old school hip hop artists, the ones that are actually going into the hip hop hall of fame, because they feel, I never heard of him, but they fail to understand if it wasn't for these guys, you wouldn't have the career that you have. And most of these guys did it for free. Like Will Smith, a lot of people do not know. that Will Smith was the first rapper to ever win a Grammy Award. They only see him as the Fresh Prince, the clown on the Fresh Prince, or as an actor. And when he just recently released a music video, and I saw a lot of the comments where a lot of guys are like, "Oh, Will, you too old to be doing that," but they don't realize that was the first man to ever win a Grammy Award in the hip hop category ever. You know what I'm saying? So, and he was a rapper before he became an actor. You know what I'm saying? Ice-T. Ice-T is known for his acting, for the commercials on TV, for the car shield and everything. But a lot of young guys don't know. He was like one of the forefathers of gangster rap back in the day before NWA. Okay. He also did rock with he was involved with heavy metal and stuff growing out there in California. So it is becoming like that. There's like I said, hip hop is hip hop. It doesn't matter. The only difference is that you have a lot of young artists now where they don't recognize the older pioneers because to them they're old. They don't know them, so they never heard of them. So they're no good. They're trash.
Yeah, it's when you describe a hip hop, it seems to me as if hip hop is a form of expression, and that's why it resonates across the continents. It kind of reminds me
Yes.
of haiku. We're not really that everybody's not that clear about how haiku originated, but it
Mhm.
seems as if it also spread throughout the world too as a form
Yes.
of expression.
It's even mentioned like in some of the rap songs, well, they'll mention haiku and technically that's like I think spoken word is very similar like to haiku. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, it's all connected. If you really look, like don't look at black and white. You have to like I'm a type of person I like to look in the gray. Okay. And if you look in the gray, you see there's a lot of connections because if you think about hip hop, it's not only music, it's a whole culture. You're talking about fashion, you're talking about music, poetry, art, DJing, dancing. It's like a whole wide range of elements that fall under this umbrella of hip hop. And it's evident because I have friends on Facebook that are like from all over the world. I have a friend right now who has an organization called Fahrenheit. They're dancers, and they have a huge chapter in China. Okay, there's a one of the best dancers right now, hip hop dancers, is from Korea. You know what I'm saying? Korea and Japan right now, hip hop is huge over there. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of old school artists now that are tour Europe because now Europe is starting to get there. Germany, France, Finland, Switzerland. I mean, it's crazy like how something that started in the South Bronx in the ghetto has gotten to the point now where it's world renowned. It's known everywhere. You have artists in every, like I said, every continent. It doesn't matter where. You know what I'm saying? You have rappers in Iran, Iraq. Amidst they had a kid who was 10 years old. While they're doing all the stuff that's going on over there, he's actually doing a music video rapping about what's going on over there. And he was 10. You know what I'm saying? So it's become such a thing where we never, ever thought that it would get to where it is now at all.
Well, I hope that all this success hopefully lifted the South Bronx out of its depression, but likely not, right? But if only it could help.
Mm. Well, I think the fact that they actually recognized the South Bronx and put the hip hop museum in the South Bronx.
Mhm.
I think that gave a little bit of credentials. Also, to they started to acknowledge, yes, it was originated in the South Bronx. The reason why it came along, there was a lot of, a lot of poverty, there was a lot of drugs, but it brought communities together. Okay, when I was a kid, hip hop came along and it stopped all the gang violence because that's when you start instead of killing each other, they started dancing against each other.
Oh, uh-huh.
Okay. Gangs, gangs started doing dance crews, you know what I'm saying? So instead of shooting each other next week, we're gonna dance battle you next week. You know what I'm saying? And it saved a lot of lives, and it helped give people hope in a time and in a period where there was none. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there were some hip hop artists that I heard of like, in Chicago. They're kind of like rapped against each other, and then some of them did kind of kill each other too.
Well, yes, yes, yeah. King Vaughn, one of them. Yeah, that gang culture has taken over, but a lot of it too. It comes down to the younger generation. I think the younger generation is lost in a sense because they totally have taken something, and you can't live both worlds. Okay. When we were doing it, we decided, okay, we're not gonna do that no more because you can't go around trying to have something positive, but doing negativity in the dark. And that's what Chicago has become a little bit. You got these guys, trying to be productive and positive, but you're still living in that negative life. And it's coming out. You can't do both. You can't exist in both worlds. And
Well,
it's a shame because a lot of these young brothers are very talented.
right. Do you find that maybe the younger ones are just don't have enough experience to see the bigger picture, and then once they have aged a little bit more, then they would see the bigger picture and be less prone to violence and appreciate the art more rather than the clash.
I totally agree with you. I think one problem, and I mean, I was young. Young people don't think about tomorrow. They only think about today. Okay. They don't think about consequences of their actions. All they care about, and it's not really their fault either. The industry has a lot to do with it. You're throwing millions of dollars on a table to kids who never had anything. Okay. And then you're telling them, okay, go, yeah, make sure your songs are about violence, and we'll keep paying you as long as you keep promoting that stuff. And that's what happens. Okay. Uh, that's what ultimately led to the death of Tupac. Tupac was not a gangster, but because he affiliated himself with Death Row and got involved with Suge Knight, who was a gangster, you have to live that, what I'm saying? You have to live that lifestyle, and look at what happened. Okay. Because before that, Tupac was not doing that. Okay. There was a time when he was with the group Digital Underground. All his songs were happy, they were funny. You know what I'm saying? He was a totally different artist. Then when he went to Death Row, it became like this whole persona he had to take on because of the affiliations with Suge Knight, the Bloods, and all the thing with the Crips, and ultimately it killed him. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's very sad. And then what happens? A lot of them, when they do realize it, it's too late.
Earlier, you mentioned that a whole culture came out of hip hop, the fashion and everything else. But there's also the marketing machine that helped to bring it all together.
Mhm.
How can we separate the marketing machine and still once the marketing machine comes in, it could help widen the reach of the hip hop, but then some artists might be forced to lose their identity, at least part of their identity, to fit in with the marketing machine. Do you have
Yes.
any thoughts about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It's all about money. You know what I'm saying? When you had clothing lines, for instance, like FUBU, when the clothing line FUBU first came out, a lot of people don't even know FUBU actually stands for us, by us. Okay. The line was done in a basement in Queens by some friends of LL Cool J who designed clothing in their basement. Okay. And it was going very well. What happened? Marketing comes along and says, oh, on the money, we'll help you with, manufacturing, but then you lose control. Okay. Same thing happened with Carl Kanai, was another hip hop fashion. Was when he first came out, he had total control. Once you give in to the money and the dreams and everything that they sell you, but you fail to realize that you lose control. You know what I'm saying? And that's a big problem. That's why a lot of people end up turning around like, where did it all go? I don't have no say so. I don't have, and the creativity is gone now because now you're just a name for some, you're just a name. You're not even the one designing the clothes anymore. You know what I'm saying? They're just using your name on something that you built, but it's not yours anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's, that chasing the dollar, and they always throw the big money. And again, it comes down to when you don't have that and you're struggling to get that, people don't consider, well, what am I actually giving up? Or they say, oh, they're paying me millions of dollars for my clothing line. Yeah, but then is it your clothing line anymore? You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, they take away, you're not doing it in your basement no more. They're doing it in a factory in another country for way less and only giving you a percentage.
What about those that have taken millions to sell their clothing line? Do you know of any of them that have taken those millions to start another clothing line?
Well, the only ones I could think of, uh, you had Diddy with Sean John. Okay, when he first came out with Sean John, it was strictly like Bad Boy. It was under the umbrella of Bad Boy. But then what happened? He ended up selling the rights to Macy's. You know what I'm saying? And then everything, and we already know what's going on with him now. You know what I'm saying? And the money becomes a big problem. As far as people still keeping it, I really don't know any that have. They might have their own, like they might have a brick and mortar spot like in New York, something like that. But it won't reach the heights that you would want it to because you don't have the financial backing from these big, as you said, marketing machines. You know what I'm saying? That are willing to put in these millions of dollars. So it becomes a struggle in itself.
Right. Like you just said, you don't know how they're doing now because there's not the marketing machine to tell you. And
Yeah.
do you see any artists or that is making their name known right now without that much marketing? Is there anybody at all that might pop into your mind?
One that has done very well is 50 Cent.
Uh,
50 Cent still keeps control. He
yes.
still keeps control of the stuff that he has. He calls the shots. He's very much involved with his movie like Power, for instance, was a huge success for him, but he stayed very much involved with the producing and everything else. Uh, you have several, they're not on that scale.
Who was
You
the
have
one that
Dr. Dre,
who was the one that you were talking about? You got
50
Buffett.
Cent, 50 Cent.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
He still maintains control of the power where he says, how it's going to be. He actually, I think, just bought a whole bunch of land to produce his own movies. Okay. Another one that comes to mind is Ice Cube. Ice Cube has his own movie company. He produces his own movies. He does his own casting. He also runs the 3-on-3 basketball league. You know what I'm saying? Where he has control of it. Nobody else is. He's the CEO, the founder, and has remained that from day one.
Have you any idea how they're able to do it to retain control?
But I think too, it comes back to it because they were already celebrities.
Mm.
I'm saying Ice Cube already had his huge following from NWA, his music career, the movie, the Friday movies, Next Friday. So he was already established. So I think it becomes a little bit easier. 50 Cent was another one. He already had his rap career. He was when he was with Aftermath Records, him, Eminem, Dr. Dre. So it's much easier and they took a lot of their own money. You know what I'm saying? So when you have some kind of credentials and you're willing to put your own money to, because you believe in yourself, then other people be like, okay, well, he's been a winner so far, it might not be a bad idea. You know what I'm saying? And even you could, it's not hip hop related, but look at Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry produces his own movie, and I'm sure in the beginning nobody was who's Tyler Perry, you know what I'm saying? But then it wasn't, I think, till Oprah said, you know what, this guy's gonna be something big. And what happens is once you start with the credentials and you start having backing, everything you touch becomes gold. And that's what's pretty much has happened like with 50 Cent, Ice Cube, where they've been able to take and expand and keep getting bigger because they've already shown that they're winners, consistent winners on top of that.
So what do you see of the future? Right now it's expanding. Is there anything in the future that you see in the hip hop community that will be changing?
I think you have a lot more of the older guys are coming back. There's a thing where they're actually trying to reclaim it because hip hop actually lost once Biggie and them died, like hip hop lost the real meaning of hip hop. It became trap music. Uh, so a lot of guys are trying to come back and take over, like a lot of older school guys. You even have there was a whole big thing of Christian rappers in Chicago who are all their music now, when you listen to it, it's very much like old 90s hip hop influenced music, whereas a lot of bass heavy and you could actually understand what they're talking about. Whereas now guys are mumbling and you can understand, and all the stuff was about negativity, violence, degrading women, and it's starting to change because you have guys like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, who are trying to change that image. Okay, there's a lot of people are starting to say, you know what, we're like done with that. You know what I'm saying? That had its phase. It's time to get back to music that puts out positivity and gives people hope. When I was growing up, music was all about, yeah, you have music about what was going on, but it was about fun. You know what I'm saying? Like when Sugar Hill Gang came out and talking about when you go to somebody's house and the food is no good, it was stuff that you could relate to. You know what I'm saying? And they go to the hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. It was stuff that you could relate to. Then it became totally something that people are like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? I think if it goes back to the grassroots where it started at, it could really take off again. And that's like the trend that's starting to happen.
Well, even Will Smith came back. When did he come back with?
Yeah. I just saw the video this morning on Facebook, but he has a new video out. You have guys like old school guys like Rakim from Eric B and Rakim. You still have Nas. There was even a song like last year with Queen Latifah. A lot of people don't know Queen Latifah was one of the most premier female rappers that ever existed. There's a song where she came back and she was like, I got the Grammys, I got the Emmys, but I'm coming back to my roots. So a lot of people are starting to come back because they're getting tired of the music that's being put out there.
There's not that the original soul of the music. They want that soul back. In other words.
Yes, yes, definitely. Like you'd be able to play music, you could dance to it. You know what I'm saying? And it was different. Like not, and then it became something that no, like, why are you talking about shooting people and why you want to disrespect women and talking about drugs and lean and even the personas that some of these artists have, like they felt like they're entitled. You know what I'm saying? And no, the people are making you who you are. You have to show appreciation for those same fans that go to see you. You know what I'm saying? Instead of disregarding and disrespecting them. You know what I'm saying? You have to respect the pioneers in front of you because if it wasn't for them, there would be no genre of music for you to be performing as it is. And I think a lot of the older generations took offense to that. They got tired of being called old and were tired of being disrespected. And they're like, you know what? We're taking this back. Okay, you just had LL Cool J and Eminem do a song together. LL Cool J, a lot of people don't know, is the only rapper that has had hit songs for the past 50 years. 50 years consistent. You know what I'm saying? He's like almost 60 years old and he's still doing it. You know what I'm saying? And still very good at it. So I think
Kudos
I
to
think
him.
hmm?
Kudos to him. 'Cause
Oh yes, definitely. I love to see when that happens. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's the trend where we go, where it goes back to the way it was, where it was actually good music. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that people could feel, stuff that people can relate to. You know what I'm saying?
what does your name Dutch stand for? Nelson Dutch.
Well, they call me Dutch because what happened was when I was young, I used to, well, not now, but I used to have a lot of hair, and my hair was very curly. I used to wear like these what they call the bucket hats. So one time I was sitting with my friends and they said, "Man, you look like that boy from Dutch Boy Paints. Have you ever seen the paint company, Dutch Boy?" So I was like, and I looked at my friends like this, it just stuck, Dutch Boy. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So then it stuck, and it's been with me ever since.
So that was a long time ago. That was like about how long ago when you were
Oh yes. I was about 13
uh
years old. That's when I first started dancing and first because it sounded much more cooler than Nelson. So I was like, yeah. So I
uh,
became Dutch and stuck ever since.
what about that hat that you wore when you were dancing? Did it fall off?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time. But at that time too, I had a lot of hair, so I wasn't wearing hats that much. But yeah. Then the baseball hats came into play. Then I started shaving my head, and yeah, excuse me.
Well, Nelson Dutch Seda, thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today. And we love all your insights. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.